The United States is now reporting 70,000 coronavirus cases per day, a mark that you have called disturbingly high. As you well know, one of our 3 vaccines is not available. The CDC and FDA paused the Johnson & Johnson vaccine after 6 reports of blood clots among women ages 18 to 45. So given that, what's the reason not to resume J&J and that vaccine in men and in older women?
Because you want to make sure, Dana, that you have all the information that you need to make that determination. Because although the cases, the 6 cases, as you mentioned correctly, were among women of a certain age group, if you look at the experience, for example, that AZ has had in Europe and the UK, it went beyond just women. Were some men involved. There was also a great display of the ages. So we just wanted to take a look at our experience with another vaccine, i.e. the J&J vaccine, and not take too long in making that determination. I think to just assume on the basis of 6 that you know everything that's going on with this, I think would not be prudent. And for that reason, they put a pause, take a look, see what's going on, make sure you know the scope of what's going on, and then make a decision. So hopefully by Friday, we'll get back on track one way or the other.
By Friday, the CDC advisors are meeting on Friday, but you think that that is actually when J&J will be unpaused?
Well, I think by that time we're going to have a decision. Now, I don't want to get ahead of the CDC and the FDA and the advisory committee, but I would imagine that what we will see is that it would come back, and it would come back in some sort of either warning or restriction. Again, I don't know. I don't want to be ahead of them, but I keep getting asked that. I do think we will get it back in some manner or form. But what I'm sure, I hope, that we don't see anything extended beyond Friday. We need to get Friday some decision one way or the other.
You said that this week, in fact, that there is always somewhat of a threat that new vaccine-resistant variants could emerge in unvaccinated parts of the world. So how concerned are you that new vaccine-resistant variants could pose a problem for the United States down the road?
Well, absolutely. That's something you have to take seriously, and that's the reason why you want to get our population vaccinated as completely as possible, as quickly and as expeditiously as possible. We know that certain variants, although they are different and might elude the vaccines a bit, they really have a wide spectrum. For example, the 117, the one that is dominant now in the United States, Dana, is very well taken care of by our vaccines. Even some of the ones that are more problematic, the vaccine might not completely protect against it, but it almost certainly, at least in our current experience, protects against very severe disease, death particularly. Now, having said that, when we have the rest of the world that might have a lot of virus dynamics going on, we always have to be on the alert that one of those variants might come here, and we have to be prepared to respond to it, either by boosting with the current vaccine or boosting with a variant-specific vaccine. All of those things have to be looked at very seriously and carefully.
We are seeing more and more pushback to COVID restrictions from Republicans. I want our viewers to listen to a heated exchange that you had with Congressman Jim Jordan this week.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci? They've been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing, Congressman Jordan.
Well, that's obvious.
As a public health thing.
So hearing comments like these have real sway with some people out there. A new poll this week shows that 43% of Republicans still don't want to get the vaccine. How frustrating is this for you, Dr. Fauci?
You know, Dana, it is quite frustrating because the fact that one may not want to get vaccinated, in this case, a disturbingly large proportion of Republicans, only actually works against where they want to be. They want to be able to say these restrictions that are put on by public health recommendations are things that they're very concerned about. We're all concerned about that. We share that concern. But the way you get rid of those restrictions is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly and as expeditiously as possible, because when that happens, for absolutely certain, you're going to see the level of virus in the community go down and down and down to the point where you would not have to have those public health restrictions. So it's almost paradoxical that on the one hand, they want to be relieved of the restrictions, but on the other hand, they don't want to get vaccinated. It just almost doesn't make any sense.
You were quite restrained when you were testifying under oath in Congress. You're on cable TV now. You want to say anything more about what you really thought?
No, I don't enjoy those kind of confrontations. But I mean, it was very, very clear. He was talking about liberties that were being restricted. This has nothing to do with liberties, Dana. We're talking about the fact that 560,000 people in our country have died. We're talking about 60 to 70,000 new infections per day. That's the issue. This is a public health issue. It's not a civil liberties issue.
Let's talk about the efforts to vaccinate children. Pfizer has already asked the FDA to authorize its vaccine in children as young as 12 years old after a trial found 100% efficacy. Right now, Stanford is launching a trial on children as young as 2 years old. When do you now think elementary school students could start getting vaccinated? Could it be sooner than you thought?
Possibly. I mean, we had said originally, and I think it might still be that way by the time you get down to that level of elementary school. Certainly, we're going to have high school kids, the 12 to 15-year-old that was shown to literally have 100% efficacy in the vaccine. I would be surprised if we didn't have the high school kids being able to be vaccinated by the fall term. As we get later into the year, towards the end of the year, I think by the time we get to the first quarter of 2022, we'll be able to vaccinate children of virtually any age, hopefully before then. But I think that's going to be the latest we'll see it.
Okay, first quarter of 2022. That's coming before we know it, but certainly for elementary school kids, maybe not quick enough. But I do want to ask about the coronavirus restrictions still in effect, even for fully vaccinated Americans. Some vaccinated Americans may want to travel, eat indoors at restaurants, feel like they don't need to wear masks outdoors around others. You've been touting how effective the vaccine is. So what is the scientific reason that it isn't safe for vaccinated Americans to do those things?
The issue is it depends on what you mean by safe and its relative risk. So let me explain, Dana. The first thing you got to realize that when you get vaccinated, your risk of getting infected dramatically diminishes and is very low. So then the obvious question is, why are there any restrictions? They're all because in a certain situation, one can get vaccinated, have no clinical disease at all, but get infected and not even know it, and have replication of virus in your nasopharynx and inadvertently transmit it to somebody else who might actually be unvaccinated and get ill. That's the reason why you want to wear a mask there. The other reason for wearing a mask is that there are variants that are circulating, and although they're unusual, we are seeing breakthrough infections, but we're also seeing variants that are a bit disturbing. Fortunately for us, the 117, which is the variant that was originating in the UK, our vaccines are very effective against them. So when people say, well, why can't I go? You can travel. Your risk is really very low. What the CDC is saying is that it depends on what your level of risk that you want to take. The one thing you want to do is be careful that you don't inadvertently infect someone else, or that given the fact that we have 60 to 70,000 new infections in the community, that is a precarious situation. That's the point. So we don't want people to think that you don't dramatically diminish your risk when you get vaccinated. You absolutely do. The risk is very low. And people will make decisions about what they want to do, and it will be a relative risk. What risk am I willing to take?
Before I let you go, I want to ask about another epidemic in the U.S., and that is gun violence. 8 people were shot and killed in a mass shooting in Indianapolis on Thursday night. The U.S. has reported 47 mass shootings in just over a month. You've worked in public health broadly for a long time. Is gun violence in the U.S. a public health emergency?
myself as a public health person, I think you can't run away from that. I mean, when you see people getting killed, I mean, in this last month, it's just been horrifying what's happened. How can you say that's not a public health issue?
Dr. Anthony Fauci, thank you so much this morning. I appreciate it.
Right, thanks.